Welcome to the ArmaniTalks show, episode 24. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. Within the show, I cover a range of topics ranging from public speaking, storytelling, emotional intelligence, creativity, and much more. To join the tribe, hit that subscribe button right on below, hit that bell notification, and never miss another episode again. The ArmaniTalks shows are also available on different podcast platforms ranging from Apple, SoundCloud, Spotify, and much more. And if you're a Twitter or X user, the entire episodes will be made available there, so you can listen wherever you desire. This show, it is meant to help engineers and entrepreneurs improve their communication skills, because the better that you can communicate, the better that you can get your ideas from your mind to the world. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about a range of topics from the New Year's, right? It's the first day of 2025, all the way to different public speaking strategies. So sit back, relax, and let's enjoy. The first day of 2025 is here, and I almost forgot about it. I was going about my regular content creation schedule, and I was like, wait a minute. Today is the first. I always record the ArmaniTalks shows on the first. Let me go ahead and record. This is the perfect time because yesterday I did a celebration in SeaWorld. I had not been in SeaWorld in over 15 years. And if you're one of these people that come to Florida and you want to go to different theme parks, the first thing you're going to be thinking of is Magic Kingdom, right? Or Epcot. And these are popular choices, Universal Studios as well. But I would say the most underrated one is SeaWorld. Something about SeaWorld is unique. The reason I would say it's unique is because it's like an aquarium on crack. You see different animals, you have different rides. And with the animals, it's not like they're super far away. For some of them, they're so close where you start to wonder, wait, can they jump over this fence right now and attack me? There's this place where you could see some otters. And the otters are so close to you where you're like, is this safe? And I kind of like, I like to feel that when I'm going to these different theme parks. Is it safe? I know it's safe, but I like to wonder that because that means I'm getting this immersive experience. The unique thing with theme parks, I would say, especially going yesterday, is that it's a brand new world. Because think about it like this. When you go to a place like Florida and you travel to a place like Texas, you'll notice that, yes, there are certain differences, but depending on the hubs that you're staying at, a lot of the things are the same. There's going to be a McDonald's. There's going to be a Walmart. There's going to be a shopping plaza. These are things that are just routine, no matter where in the world you stay. The thing with theme parks, which are unique, is that it's like you're entering a brand new world. You will never see stuff like this on your day-to-day experiences. And a few examples include an enormous amount of people. There was this one show that we went to yesterday. It was a dolphin show. And as soon as I walk in, I see a coliseum amount of people. I'm thinking, how often are you going to see this many people gathered in one location in your day-to-day life? It just doesn't happen. So that's one example. You just see a lot of people. Another thing that you'll notice is that everything is large. I mean, if you go on roller coasters and you're trying to explain this to someone who has never been on roller coasters, this is this huge thing. You go on it, you're going upside down, left, right, super fast, by the way. If you have any prior injuries, you should not be going on a roller coaster. The person will be like, wait, is this a form of torture? Oh no, it's not a form of torture. It's a form of entertainment. I willingly put myself in the roller coaster because it's a fun time. They're going to be like, a fun time? So you're just in the air, spinning upside down in circles? That doesn't sound like a fun time. But it is. Especially when you look at the roller coaster. It looks like something magical, something gargantuan. So that's another thing that theme parks have that your day-to-day experience doesn't. And another thing that I noticed with SeaWorld that somewhat surprised me was how multicultural it was. There were different times that we were going to people, asking them for photos. Some people immediately understood the assignment, and other people were like, huh? They didn't get it at first until you did one of these hand gestures, and that's when they got it. And when they spoke, I noticed that there was a heavy accent. They were not from the US. They were coming from overseas. I would say most of the people that we saw yesterday were actually foreign. They were not from the US. And it just made me appreciate SeaWorld more because this is a global attraction. And that's when I was thinking, I wonder, there are some of these guys from China that are here. They're holding these big cameras. I wonder what query they typed into Google to get from China all the way to SeaWorld. What do you exactly type in? Big animals that you can see in the US, aquariums on crack, immersive roller coasters, water style rides. What do you exactly search to go from China all the way to the US, more specifically in Orlando, Florida, more specifically from all the different theme parks, you come to SeaWorld? I don't know exactly what he typed, but I do know that he was there. And the fact that there were so many different people there, it made me appreciate SeaWorld and theme parks as a whole. That's one thing that I want to do more in 2025. I want to go to these different parks. And speaking of parks, did you know that Walt Disney was the first person that created the theme park? Before the theme park, it was just a park. And a park was a collection of different rides. None of them had any form of congruence. But what Walt Disney wanted to do was he had a collection of cartoons at the time where there was a Mickey Mouse, there was Donald Duck, Minnie Mouse, Goofy. And all these cartoons, sure, they were being promoted in the medium known as TV. But he also wanted to see if he could get more out of it. At that point in Walt's career, he was facing some creative difficulties. It's because the country was going through war, and a lot of the times when he needed resources, those resources were being shipped overseas. So he couldn't really utilize his creativity for a long time due to the war. So he thought, I've been out of the game for so long. I want to get back into it. I want a creative challenge. And that's when he realized I could get these different cartoons, and rather than just seeing them on the TV, you could actually interact with them. You could touch them. You could hug them. You could take photos with them. This will be a park, but not any kind of park. It's going to be a theme park. There is going to be congruence among the different rides out there. There's going to be characters that know each other. They're all from the same universe. And once you enter this land, you will be immersed in that universe. This is Disney World. And initially, when he was suggesting this idea, plenty of people were like, Walt, you're crazy, and no one is going to want to do this. This is meant to be a cartoon show. It's not meant to be a park. And do you know what running a park is even like? Walt didn't know. Luckily for Walt, his brother, Roy, he was a very practical guy. Roy and Walt had a somewhat strange relationship because you could view them as the human version of the left brain and the right brain. Walt was super extroverted, and he was this charismatic person that took over every room that he entered, and he was imaginative. Roy, on the other hand, was the introvert, and he was very analytical. A lot of the times when Walt had one of these big ideas, Roy was like, all right, settle down, buddy. From these 3 big ideas that you proposed, we can do one of them, but not all 3. And Walt needed something like that. Walt needed that sort of stability. Otherwise, he would just go crazy. Walt Disney, he is one of the most unique guys out there because he is actually imaginative. And by reading Walt Disney's biography, I realized that the founder of a company, they have a completely different role than the CEO of a company. I've talked about this before, but Walt Disney's perspective and Bob Iger's perspective, the current CEO of Disney, it's really different. Walt is more about building. Bob is more about acquiring. And it's needed at times. I mean, think about how many times that the founder of a company got kicked out by their own board because they were a great founder, but not a great CEO. The guy of Papa John's, for a while, he was both, right? He was a great founder, but he also understood the business side of things. I believe his name is John Schnatter. If you ever hear John talk, he talks glowingly about pizzas, but at the same time, he understands the numbers game of it. That's what business is really about. There's a difference between business and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship requires that founder that has that vision that other people cannot see. See, that's where Walt was great in. But where he would often lack was the business side of things, and that's where his brother Roy would help him out. A lot of the times when you study history, you will see that there were duos of one guy that was this larger than life force, and then there was the other guy that was grounding him. Another example of this is in sports. You have Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Michael Jordan, he was that raging bull. He was going to get in your face. He was going to yell at you. He was going to let you have it. And Scottie Pippen was the opposite guy. He was more so a teddy bear. After Michael Jordan got done yelling at you, he would put his arm around you. Scottie would say, hey, it'll be okay. Michael just gets like that sometimes. And that yin and yang personality mixture is what helped. With communication skills, more specifically emotional intelligence, one thing that you will learn is that the polarity is a very good thing. You don't always want two intense people being partners. Because when you have two intense people both being partners with one another, they're both going to get under each other's skin. On the flip side, if you have this intense personality mixed with a soft-spoken individual, they will make magic. You don't want two soft-spoken people either. That's where the polarity comes into the mix. I think polarity is great for business interactions. For a while, one of the first businesses that I started was when I was selling products on Amazon. And for a while, my business partner, he was this engineering guy that we were classmates before. I was more so the big personality. I was more so the guy that would talk to the suppliers. I would try to negotiate deals for us. But my business partner, he didn't like doing what I did. He was more so about the numbers. He would set up the listing page. He would find relevant keywords to put into the titles and the description. So we were different and we worked well together. I think for business, polarities work great. For relationships, I don't always know if that's the case. I think some polarity is good, where the guy is, let's say, masculine and the woman is feminine. But when you're too different, that's what causes an issue. I know a couple of different people where one person, he wants to really get into business. His girl is completely different. His girl really wants the 9-to-5 life. And she also wants the 9-to-5 life for her partner. Now, this is where these two people, there is an intense polarity. When you have an intense polarity in terms of lifestyle values, that typically doesn't work. If you have polarity in terms of, let's say, the nature, like the essence, masculine versus feminine, I think that's something that can work. But when you have different priorities in terms of career goals, not only for yourself, but for the other person, that's when you come into an issue. With 9-to-5 jobs, they are transforming before our very eyes. I recall when I first started my career, long time ago. I'm older than I look. I'm 33 years old. A long time ago when I started my career, there wasn't really the concept of work from home. And I recall around the middle of my career, 2018, there was this one lady named Sangeeta who was driving all the way from Orlando to Tampa every single day to come to the Tampa office. And eventually she went to the upper management and was like, look, I will still come into the office, but instead of me coming in every day, can you please make it just 3 days? The other 2 days I could stay home, be with my family. I will still get the work done. I promise you that. Upper management said no. Sangeeta eventually gave them an ultimatum, and upper management fired her. And she was needed. And she was a subject matter expert in what she ran. So her getting fired like that showed you how much times have changed. Because nowadays, hybrid, it's just the norm. But before, it was something that working from home was something that you did when you were sick. It's like we kind of knew that you could always work from home, but that's not something that we ever talked about. Same with dress codes. I mean, a lot of these companies nowadays, they don't have these sharp dress codes where you have to wear suits all the time, or you have to even wear dress shirts and slacks. Before, it was like every Friday, you could wear casual clothes. But nowadays, you could wear casual clothes all the time. It's pretty unique, isn't it? The casual clothes, I believe this is one of the best things that corporate America could have done. Because I get it. You would think with a logical mind that if you dress in a very a formal sort of way, that you will carry yourself more professionally. And if you carry yourself more professionally, what will happen is that you will do a better job. That's the logical thought process. Ironically, it doesn't always work in practice. Research has shown that when people are allowed to wear, for the most part, what they want. I mean, obviously, they can't come into work with these really short skirts or a tank top, but for the most part, they can wear what they want with proper judgment, jeans, a nice polo shirt, something comfortable. They come to work with an enthusiastic attitude, and that enthusiastic attitude allows them to do a better job. The opposite is also true. You would assume that if you're super comfortable at home and you're working, then you're going to do an amazing job. That is not true, at least from my experience. Whenever I work from home, I always dress up. It's kind of weird because I dress up more when I work from home rather than when I go to the office. When I go to the office, I just wear jeans and a polo and sneakers too. But when I work from home, I wear a dress shirt. Sometimes I wear slacks. I get a nice watch on. I comb my hair. I put on my cologne. I feel good. And you would think, well, why do you do all of that? I mean, why can't you just wear your pajamas and work from home? You know, you can do that. I know I can do that, but I don't feel good when I do that. When I'm wearing pajamas at home, I don't have the right psychology to want to work. Like, what am I going to work for? I could just sleep. But when I'm dressed up like that, I want to work. And by the way, don't neglect the shoes. Put on the dress shoes as well, and you will just, boom, get in that zone. So that's something I learned since working. People that wear casual clothes to the office thrive. But if you wear casual clothes in your work from home atmosphere, you don't always thrive. It's better to wear professional clothes when you work from home, and then you will thrive. What you wear definitely influences how you think, feel, and just carry yourself with the world. That's why I'm not a big fan of all of this feminine fashion nowadays. I wrote a detailed post on my newsletter, which you can sign up for, by the way, ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter, where I talked about how sad it is where a lot of men, they're dressing so feminine nowadays. They're painting their fingernails. They're wearing eyeliner. They're wearing way too much jewelry. A little bit of jewelry here and there, I think, makes you pop. But too much jewelry doesn't look good. They have one of these little rings right here. What's it called? A septum ring. The skirts, come on, don't do the skirts. See, I'm going to give you a very important insight right now, especially if you're a younger guy listening to this. Do not follow athletes for fashion advice. For whatever reason, I believe fashion companies and media companies, they're working together nowadays to push the boundaries on men's fashion. They're trying to make it more and more feminine. And if you're someone that says, hey, stop doing that, then a lot of the talking points will be, why? Why can't men wear skirts? And I truly do believe that not everything needs to be questioned. When you're always questioning something, you think you're making progress, but what'll happen is that you just break things apart and you never offer a new resolution. And now, rather than having a clear framework on how to do things, you're just in confusion. You need to pick and choose your battles. So you don't always need to ask the question, why? And if you engage in someone's why too much, now you start second guessing yourself. Like if someone comes to me and it's like, oh, why can't men wear skirts? I don't have a well thought out response for this. But if you were to force me to think of a well thought out response, I will say what you wear influences how you feel. When you don't have any structure in what you wear, you start to act a little too kooky. Your thought waves are all around the planet, and it's not good. You don't have any structure. You don't have any direction. And it may seem like a radical statement that your clothes influence you this much, but it's not. Because during public speaking, I saw this firsthand. Whenever you wear shorts and a crumpled up t-shirt and you're supposed to give a speech, you will not do a good enough job as when you wear a suit. Your fashion influences your psychology. So if you're dressing like a clown, eventually you're going to feel like a clown. And if you feel like a clown, you will carry yourself like a clown. So stop dressing like a clown. Very simple. Men should have a certain framework for how they dress. I believe dress pants, dress shirts, jeans, a clean, timeless watch, combing your hair. This is the effective way to carry yourself. But never follow athletes. For whatever reason, athletes are the first to get brainwashed by the feminine fashion trend. And if you see them, they're walking from point A to point B. Nowadays, it literally looks like a circus. Guys like James Harden, for example, Russell Westbrook, these guys dress like such clowns going from the bus to playing the actual game. See, this is when there's too much freedom, it looks like a good thing at first, but eventually it becomes a very bad thing. You need structure, in my opinion. If you're an NBA fan, you may understand what I'm about to say. There were two well-known commissioners. There was David Stern, and then there's Adam Silver. David Stern was that tyrant. You did not want to mess with him. Adam Silver, he's a softer guy. He's more willing to listen to the players. I miss the David Stern era because when David Stern was running the NBA, everyone would talk crap about him. They were like, he's too harsh. There was one time that two NBA players started fighting. And David Stern's like, you're suspended for 15 games. People were like, don't you think that's a little too excessive? David Stern said, who cares if you think it's excessive? 15 games. You did not want to mess around with David Stern. With Adam Silver, he's a little too much, well, let's listen to what the players have to say, which started off as a good thing. But eventually, nowadays, it's like these players, they're entitled due to being given such freedom. They don't appreciate the position that they have. They're over here dressing like clowns. Where David Stern was like, on game day, you cannot wear whatever you want. You wear a suit. And back then, this seemed like one of the worst things. People had all these types of talking points regarding this. David Stern, he thinks he's a slave owner. I mean, it got that radical. Where nowadays, you look at the way that these guys are dressing, and you're like, I kind of miss David Stern's no-nonsense approach. Because I noticed when players, they wore suits to the games, they were more competitive. Nowadays, these guys are all joking around with each other. They're hanging out after the games. There's no competitive fire. Why do we watch sports? We watch it for the competitive fire. And there's a lot of headlines nowadays where it says NBA ratings are down by 20%. And different people are talking about why that's the case. And one of the common theories is It's because they're shooting too many threes. Due to them shooting too many threes, more and more people are tuning out. I don't think that's the problem at all. I like watching the threes, and I think a lot of people like watching the threes as well. I think the problem is that these guys are too friendly and they don't take their job seriously. It makes me cringe when these guys are making $20 to $50 million a year. They don't play every game. Sometimes they're not injured and they're like, well, whatever. I mean, today I just don't feel like playing. And it's because, I truly do believe this, I think it's because of Adam Silver. He just gave the players too much freedom. It's a players league now. And it's a players league, it starts off good because they feel empowered. Then they go from being empowered to entitled. They're like, well, why do we have to play all the games? Well, why do we have to compete? The regular season, I mean, it's not that important. The playoffs matter, but the regular season doesn't. And it really, I believe, can be traced back to Adam Silver being so soft. Where David Stern, when he was tough, and he said, look, basketball, it's not your playground, okay? This is your job too. You will carry yourself like it's your job. And he had that, oh, it's actually funny. His name is David Stern. And I was going to say he had that stern approach. That is when basketball was in its golden era. And I think this should just be a leadership lesson in general. You don't want to be one of these guys that's too buddy-buddy with the people you're hiring. They need to somewhat have this sense of mystery about you as well. If you're organizing all these different meetups, talking about your personal life to them, just hearing their personal life too much, it starts off good. I'm not denying that. In the first couple of weeks, people are saying good stuff about you. They're like, he's way better than the last guy who was really mean. Then eventually what happens is that they start to take advantage of you. I mean, just go down memory lane. Think about how many times you had a teacher that was really strict, and then that teacher got sick for a week to 2 weeks, and now you had a substitute teacher. The sub came in and he's just like, yo, guys, do whatever you want, right? So the kids began to do whatever they want. There was no structure. And then eventually the sub was trying to get some control over the class because the class was getting a little too loud. So the sub was like, hey guys, calm down just a little bit. But the students didn't listen. The students were like, who are you? Shut up. And the sub was like, wait a minute, you don't tell me to shut up. I've been so nice to you, so you're supposed to be nice to me back. But rather than being nice back, these kids, they're entitled now. And when someone is entitled, it's really hard to bring them back because now when you're trying to bring them back, they don't believe you. They're like, well, you're just trying to put on this fake character. You know what? I'm going to push you to see if you're really going to do what you say you're going to do. And now it's tougher for you versus if you were stern from the very beginning. So how you start off definitely influences the middle portion. And if you're somewhat sloppy in the middle portion, it's hard to reframe the narrative in a mass audience. They just have this perception of you and it's just difficult. So I think you need to be somewhat stern. You don't want people to feel too empowered, especially when they're working for you. You want them to feel empowered, don't get me wrong, but not too empowered. Which brings me to a lot of these talks regarding the unions within Amazon. Amazon, they are the complete opposite of allowing their workers to feel empowered, especially workers in the lower totem pole. If you're a managerial director, you will have a lot of power. I read a lot of these books based on Amazon, the Everything Store, for example. And the way that Amazon runs is that they prioritize those people that can think of fresh new ideas. The people that succeed in that company and have a lot of empowerment behind them, they have more creative will to do what they want, are the engineers. More specifically, the computer engineers, because they come with ideas. So that company is empowering people with ideas. But the people that they don't empower at all are the people who execute the ideas, aka the people that deliver the packages. Because there are different routes, right? And the routes are created by the computer engineers. And the people that are executing the routes, they don't get that much respect in Amazon. They get paid $21 an hour, which, by the way, you would think that $21 an hour is a lot, because think about where we came from. In 2007, 2008, people were getting paid $6.78 an hour. Now, people are making $21 an hour. That's an improvement, right? Not always. It really depends on where you're working. Because if you're working in California and you're making $21 an hour, that seriously is nothing. California is so expensive, where $21 an hour, it's so small. So I completely get why these people want to unionize and get more of a voice. I would say this is something that I've changed my perspective on within the past 2 to 3 years. Within the past 2 to 3 years, I went from being someone that always agreed with the upper management, CEO, the business owners, to now empathizing with the workers more. Because there is no Amazon without the people delivering the packages. And if you're treating them like animals, you're not even treating them like people, then eventually they are going to unionize, and it's something that is well within their prerogative. I was one time reading a biography on Charles Koch, the guy who's leading Koch Industries. And during his era, it was the exact opposite. People within unions had too much power, or the business owners, they were terrified of the unions. Whenever the business owners had a new idea and they wanted to execute it, the union workers, more specifically the presidents, were like, no, we don't want our workers doing that. And it was killing innovation. And when Charles Koch came, he's like, we're switching this completely. And he had more of a guerrilla approach that slowly fragmented union workers. And slowly, as history progressed, union workers lost more and more power. So if you study on businesses in the 60s, you'll see that a lot of these union workers, right, especially the head honchos, they were sort of like thugs. You had to actually negotiate with them, and they came with ultimatums. And nowadays, they don't have that much power. So I slowly see the pendulum swinging back to giving some favorability towards the union workers. And I do think Amazon is going to be a Goliath of a company that is being made an example out of. I think eventually what is going to happen is that a lot of these people protesting, they are going to get their way. In California, they're not going to get paid $21 an hour, and they are going to get paid $30 an hour. I think their demands are going to be fulfilled. And it's going to make Amazon evaluate what's next. Because, I'm not trying to say that the story ends well. Sure, these workers may get $30 an hour, and Amazon may have lost this battle, but who knows what type of war that they're scheming up. Maybe from them, they're going to feel so annoyed that they have to pay these guys $30 an hour that they actually start thinking, well, why do we need them at all? I mean, they're whining a little too much for our liking. How about we actually invest in drone package delivery systems? Do you remember that one video in 2013-ish where Jeff Bezos was with Charlie Rose and he introduced these drone package delivering systems? What happened to those? Those never actually became a thing. But after this whole union thing, maybe the drones are an idea that Amazon truly is considering. So I'm not saying that this entire protesting thing is going to end well with the people protesting. They may win the battle to only lose the war. And that's just how the world works. A lot of the times you're winning a lot of these small little battles. You think you're winning everything, and suddenly you lose the war. One of the times that this happens more than ever is when you're arguing a lot. When you're arguing with people a lot, you may be winning a lot of these tiny battles, right? You win one argument, another, all with the same person, and you think any time that you two disagree on something, you're ultimately going to come out the victor, all for this person to just stop answering your phone calls. So you won all these battles, but you lost the war. You lost the person. That's why if you're a truly good debater, you need to pick and choose your battles. One guy that did this a lot was Christopher Hitchens. Apparently, He seemed like a very argumentative type, so I don't know if I believe him when he says this, but he says that with his wife, after he was done debating all these different people about religion, he was an atheist, by the way. He talked about all these reasons that God doesn't exist. He would come home and he would have that same debating mentality with his wife. She would tell him to take out the trash. He'd be like, well, why do I need to take out the trash? Why don't you, honey? Let's both present our cases and see who has the better case. He said that he did this for a while until eventually his wife was getting pissed off at him. And he's like, okay, I need to turn down my debating mode when I'm engaging with my wife. So you need to pick and choose your battles. It's like if you're an NBA player. If you're an NBA player, no matter where you go, whichever open gym you go to, people are always challenging you to a one-on-one. And if you keep playing different people one-on-one, they have everything to gain and you have everything to lose, especially if you lose. If you're a guy that loses to a regular guy in LA Fitness, what's that going to be like for you? Different people are going to record, oh wait, Jimmy beat this NBA player, and the NBA player gets humiliated. So the NBA player, they need to be strategic about which one-on-one games they actually play. So a lot of the times in the social skills and emotional intelligence world, you need to be somewhat picky about which battles you're going to be fighting. Because you can be winning a bunch of battles and you think you're about to win the war, but then after winning 7 battles in a row, you just lose the entire war. Avoid doing that. I believe if you're someone that disagrees too much, you need to work on that. That is not a good thing. It's a very bad quality. And nowadays, I feel like people just have different philosophies with different things, just because we have more content available than ever. Before, let's say in 2005, we were all watching the same things, where in 2025, we're watching different things. For example, I'm a big fan of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I love his philosophy with money. But every now and then, I'll talk to my friends, and they're a big Ramsey guy. And if you listen to Dave Ramsey versus Robert Kiyosaki, you'll see that they're completely different philosophies. One talks more about building assets that produce cash flow, and the other talks more about living within your means. Two radically different philosophies. So if I'm talking to a guy that's a big Ramsey fan, I'm going to be arguing a lot about money. And if you argue a lot about money, do not be surprised by how many other things you guys argue about. Now, you're going to also be arguing about traveling, right? Where one person wants to fly first class because this is a rare experience, while the other person is like, first class? Are you crazy? We're pretty much going to spend 3 times the amount. No, not first class. Let's just fly coach. And then once you get to the food area, that's going to be another argument on how you want to spend your money. So the money discussions are always important. If you don't have the money discussions, then the money discussions will have you. This is one of the things that you want to talk about, especially in relationships, because there are different reasons couples break up. One reason is due to infidelity. Another reason is due to annoying in-laws. Another reason is due to money. If you don't have the same philosophy with money, then it's going to cause an issue. There was this TikTok prank that was happening recently called the mortgage prank. And basically the wives, they're going to their husband and they're like, honey, I can't pay my mortgage for this month. And the husband was like, you never paid the mortgage, right? And this was seen as a very funny thing. And a lot of people were saying, see, this is the love that I want. I don't want one of these 50-50 marriages. So what happened in TikTok was that a lot of these 50-50 couples now are saying, hey, honey, I can't pay the mortgage for this month. And the guy was freaking out. He's like, well, what are we going to do? And the 100-0 couples, where the guy covers everything, the girl from those couples were like, look at these 50-50 couples. They're pathetic. When the girl can't pay the money, the guy doesn't even have ideas to propose. So this whole mortgage prank, it went from being something very funny to people seriously talking about money. One group was saying, no, the only type of love I want is where the guy covers everything and I don't have to cover anything. That's more traditional. Where the other couples, the 50-50 couples, were like, I don't know about that, especially in today's economy. How is one person supposed to do everything? I'm not too sure if I talked about this before, but here's my philosophy regarding all of this. I think you need to contextualize things correctly. If you're a 100-0 couple with finances, you have to ask yourself, what is the household activities like? Because it's not fair if one guy is doing 100% of the finances, taking care of all of the bills, the girl's not covering everything, but let's say for the household duties, they're going 50-50. That's not fair. If the guy is covering 100% of the bills, then the girl should be taking care of 100% of the household duties. And this is a concept that is not intuitive for a lot of people. I actually had a talk about this on my Unapologetic Truths podcast, which I co-host with Life Math Money. You should definitely check out that podcast, by the way. You could find it on YouTube or any podcast platform of choice. It's called Unapologetic Truths, ArmaniTalks, and Life Math Money. We were talking about it, and I got a clip of that segment where I said, if the guy covers 70% of the bills, then the girl should do 70% of the household work. And the girl covers 30% of the bills, and the guy covers 30% of the household activities. That's a 70-30 relationship. And I posted that clip on TikTok, and a guy was like, well, I pay 100% of the bills, so how much of the household activities should I do? I'm like, how do you not get this? Why are you asking me to answer this question, or you're trying to make me look like the bad guy? I was like, well, if you cover 100% of the bills, you shouldn't really have to, theoretically speaking, do any of the household activities. Your wife should be taking care of that. And that's why nowadays when I watch Everybody Loves Raymond, I watch it and I perceive it in a completely different way. Where when I was a kid, I thought, how come Ray doesn't help out in the house more? Right? He should be helping out in the house more. He should be vacuuming. He should be dusting. He should be changing diapers. But as an adult, my perspective has changed. Ray in the show is the sole breadwinner. He takes care of the entire income. Okay? So he provides 100% of the expenses. So the wife, Deborah, she should be taking care of 100% of the household activities. But I recall, nowadays I'm watching Everybody Loves Raymond, and Deborah's always whining about Ray not helping out with the household activities. I'm like, sweetheart, you're not providing any of the finances, so this is your job. The household activities is 100% your job. If he wants to help out, that's a bonus, but don't expect it. 100%, that is your job. And these are percentages that you should somewhat talk about. The opposite spectrum is also true, where the guy expects the girl to cover 50-50, right? The guy covers 50%, the girl covers the other 50%. But at home, he expects the girl to do all the work. I'm like, dude, are you crazy? And some of these guys are like, how come she's never in the mood to hook up? I'm like, dude, it's because she's taking care of half the bills, and when she comes home, you're not helping her out at all. You have to help her out then, because it's a truly 50-50 dynamic. See, these are things we actually have to talk about in this generation, where with previous generations, we didn't have to talk about it. It was actually just a straight up 100-0. Guy is the sole breadwinner and girl is the straight homemaker. That's it. Nowadays, though, everything is complicated, so you need to have these conversations more. And if you don't have conversations about money, eventually these conversations will find you. You will see yourself just talking about it. You're like, oh man, I should have brought this up before, because we have completely different philosophies. Whenever you have different philosophies from someone else, these are people that you don't want to debate too much. These are people you want to actually be more curious from, because you could use this as an opportunity to learn. This is hard to do, because when we know something and someone knows something else and they're telling us a little too much about something that goes completely against our core philosophies, we want to fight with them. We want to be like, no, you're wrong, and here's why. But that's when we really just need to calm down. It's like Nowadays, when I talk to a 20-year-old and they're just getting into the gym, they're talking about how they go to the gym so much, right? They're like, I work out 3 hours a day, every single day. They're like, how much do you work out? It's like, dude, I'm just in there and out. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm 33 years old. You want to spend 3 hours in the gym every single day? I have other stuff to do. I could honestly talk to them about that, but I don't. Instead, I ask, well, what do you do for those 3 hours? Because somewhere within all that mumbo jumbo, all that nonsense, I will get a kernel of insight that will transform how I think. So in your 30s, hopefully you start to get a little bit more inquisitive. You're not always one of these people that want to talk about your philosophy. Because when you have ironed out your philosophy, you really want to explain it to someone. Don't explain it to someone unless they want to hear it. And that's where content creation comes in clutch. Because content creation is you, at least content creation done the right way, is you solidifying your philosophy and allowing other people a peek into it. See, content creation in 2010 was about who could be the silliest. But nowadays, as things are evolving in 2020 plus, it's more about nuance. It's more about the gray areas. We're tired of black and white. We don't want so much divisiveness all the time. We want more nuance. And the more nuanced that you get, the more that you have to solidify things that you thought you knew. You didn't really know it. You took it for granted. But nowadays, you are understanding more about it. And during that process is where content creation comes in clutch. Because sometimes I'm recording these episodes, sometimes I'm writing a blog, sometimes I'm writing a newsletter, I'm flowing, and out of nowhere, there's a kink. And I don't know how to move forward. And during that kink, where you don't know why you think what you think, when you started thinking it in the first place, during that moment of unraveling is when you are slowly understanding your philosophy. You could explain one domain beautifully with the other domain. And that's how smart, nuanced thinkers are born. In your 30s, you're going to see two different groups of people. One group is always talking about other people. They're gossiping nonstop. While the other group, they're talking more about ideas. These smart people, they make the incentive to talk about their ideas more. They'll say, don't you wonder why this thing is like this instead of like that? And that question of this is how it is and this is how it could potentially be is how a lot of small talk conversation items are built. Smart people do that, especially in your 30s. Hopefully you are knowledgeable in different fields where you can talk about that versus always talking about other people. I'm not against talking about other people, by the way. I was talking about how every family, they have 1 to 3 notorious gossipers where you talk to them, you think you're telling a secret, but you're not. Soon everyone in the family is going to hear about it. And I recall I was one day reading Will Smith's memoir. And this was around the time I noticed that there were 2 to 3 people within my family that love to gossip. And back then, I used to get annoyed. I would tell them something and soon everyone would find out. But then I was reading Will Smith's memoir and he was saying, my sister, like you tell her anything and soon everyone is going to find out. I thought, wait a minute, this character archetype is same as someone from my family as well. And then I started to hear other people talk and they all said the same thing. We all have 1 to 3 members in our family that are notorious gossipers. And surprisingly, they are not bad people. They are actually needed in the family architecture because they are what I call the little media companies, right? Because what do media companies do? They spread information. And within families, these gossipers are tiny media companies that spread information. And let's say John, he just got a promotion, but John likes to keep to himself. One day, the gossiper talks to John and John is like, by the way, I got a promotion. And John doesn't tell anyone else. No one in the family will know about this promotion unless the gossiper, the media company is like, Hey, did you hear that John got a promotion? Oh yeah, he told me. Hey, did you hear John got a promotion? Did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? He or she makes these phone calls, and now everyone is congratulating John. Hey John, I heard about your promotion. And everyone within the family now knows. This, in my opinion, is harmless. Especially when you get in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. A lot of people, they don't have the time to individually call everyone. So if you make one phone call and that one phone call allows everyone to know, then you're somewhat good. Because these gossipers, the 1 to 3 within your family, they love talking on the phone. They're always talking on the phone, chit-chatting away. If you want to talk for 30 minutes, they'll make room for 30 minutes. If you want to talk for 3 hours, they will make room for 3 hours. So they will always pick up the phone. And I respect that. As I get older, I actually respect these gossipers because I don't view them as gossipers only. I view them as mini media companies. I mean, how much information you share really does depend on you. Sometimes you truly want something to remain private. Other times you think you want it to remain private until the secret gets leaked and you're thinking, it wasn't too bad. Because private people, they were born from the information getting leaked and they were somewhat embarrassed, right? That's one reason. And other times private people are born because they shared good news too soon and that good news was pulled right under their feet. I recall there was this one time I was doing P90X and the guy that I was doing it with had just gotten a job. He told everyone about this job. And one day we're about to begin our P90X workout and he comes back and apparently he is sad. He's kind of angry too. I was like, what's good, bro? He said, well, I was at work today and they had me moving a lot of boxes. I thought, okay, well, what's the big deal? They didn't hire me to move boxes. I was like, whose boxes were they? He's like, these were my boxes to set up my cube. But I was annoyed that they didn't even set up my cube by the time that I came. I said, oh, okay, so you were moving boxes to your cube. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of annoying. And he said, yeah, I let my manager know. I was like, you let your manager know what? I let him know that I was annoyed that they were making me move all these boxes. So he was telling me this story. We're about to begin working out. And suddenly he gets a phone call. And during the phone call, his mood goes from bad to worse. He was getting fired. He just shared this news that he got this job at his dream company. And within a week, he's getting fired. And after that, I mean, he started to become more private because he was embarrassed that he shared that news too soon. So a lot of the private people, they're born because an embarrassing information got out, or they were born because they shared good news and then that good news was snatched away from them. It's a lot of these people that, for example, they get engaged, then they break off their engagement right after making an Instagram post that got 350 likes. And now they're like, oh man, 350 plus people actually, because imagine all the people that saw it but didn't like it, know that I got engaged and it broke apart. And after that, for the future, they are going to be more private. So certain times, information is meant to be private, and you do not want to share any of this information with the family gossip, because I promise you, the family gossip right after you shared the news with them is telling people. They're making their phone calls. All right. So you got to watch out. They are looking for fresh information all the time. And a lot of these family gossips are born because they're bored. They are either retired or they work a job where everything is muscle memory at this point. So this spices up their life. I think you actually should appreciate the family gossip because in some ways they bring the family closer. You need different archetypes within a family. That's what I noticed. There are certain characters that are reliable. Anytime you go to them, they will be that person you can go to for solutions. Other people you can vent to. Other people, they cause a lot of havoc. They are a problem child. But by dealing with this problem child, it matures you as a person. It allows you to see how to work with a difficult personality. And when you see other people going through problems, it teaches you not to judge too soon. So the different archetypes in a family, whether you like them or not, are all needed. And as time elapses, you will see what role they were serving in context to your life all along. Try to be close to your family because there comes a time when people slowly start passing away abruptly. And it is somewhat unfortunate if you didn't take the time to eventually make amends with them. I noticed, and I'll make this the last point. I noticed how tough it is to be close with your family if you're a single person. Because after a certain point, everyone is getting married, everyone is having kids, and if you're a single person who is going to one of these family functions, most of the time, you're just being pestered with questions of, well, where's your partner? When are you getting married? When are you having kids? And I kid you not, you will go to these events and hear those line of questioning at least 3 to 5 times. And eventually, you're just kind of scared to go to these family events, right? Because you think every single time you go, they are going to be asking you the same series of questions. And you're thinking, now why even bother? And slowly you stop saying yes to going to these events. So this is one of the sad reasons a lot of families grow apart, is because of being single and being pestered with the same questions a lot. And I can empathize because I was like that a couple of years ago. I just kept getting the same questions. I thought this wasn't the right time, and I thought I was being forced a lot to do certain things. So I just said, okay, no to a lot of family events. Eventually, when you do find your right person, and let's say you don't even want to find a person at all, you just like the single life, I recommend you start eventually going back to these family gatherings because time is limited. You never know when someone is going to pass away. This is one of the ominous things that I would like to say as I'm wrapping up today's episode. You never know when someone's going to die. You don't know if they're going to die from a car accident, from a heart attack. And by the way, last year, there were 2 to 3 people that had heart attacks at age 30. Not in their 60s or 70s, but at age 30. So people, they're not here forever. And you never know when someone is just going to say bye-bye to you forever. So it's good to make those phone calls whenever you feel that desire. Every now and then you just feel that desire, like, I really wonder what they are up to. Rather than constantly wondering, pull out your phone and text them or call them. I'm not the best phone guy, so I will text, but I got to work on phone calls more. That's something that I want to do in 2025. Call more. Pick up the phone. Yo, what's good, my homie? I was just thinking about you. And they often say, I was just thinking about you too. I was about to call you, but you know how guys are. We just postpone calls all the time. Anyways, today's episode is wrapping up. So let me just give you some promotions. I have a bunch of different resources that you can follow. This is the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, right? I'm recording this. I'm posting it on the YouTube channel. I also have a podcast. You could go on Apple. You can go on Spotify. You could go on SoundCloud and any different podcast platforms. Just type in ArmaniTalks podcast and I drop episodes there. These are mini episodes, right? We have limited time. So we have the mini episodes on there, 3 to 5 minutes long, that cover soft skills. I have a newsletter, ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter. I have a blog, right? I have all these different things. You could literally just go on ArmaniTalks.com and everything will be consolidated into one area. I do take up clients every now and then. So if you do want to work with me, you can go on ArmaniTalks.com. There should be a tab called Services. Try to submit an application for a potential free consultation. Fill it out and I will respond back to you via email if we're going to be working together. The free consultations are roughly 15 minutes, and I try to solve whatever problem that you have for me that relates with communication skills. I've dealt with all these different problems, from people being afraid to speak up in meetings, from people being afraid to give the best man speech, from people being afraid of speaking on camera, whether it's for a Zoom presentation or for a YouTube video. So if you want to work with me, go on ArmaniTalks.com, hit that services button, and then fill out a free application. With that being said, the best place, without a doubt, the best place to stay connected with me is the ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter, because this is directly from me. Where a lot of these videos, like I'll post them and people don't discover it for another 2 to 3 years because of these algorithms. They're always changing. But with the newsletter, the cool thing with that is it's right there. It's fresh every single day at 7 p.m. EST. You'll directly hear from me. Brand new newsletters, stories that will transform the way you think in regards to human dynamics. So ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter is the best place to find me. With that being said, we have hit the 1 hour mark. Thank you very much for joining me, and I wish you the best for 2025.